Welcome to the One Accord LifeNet Group. As we journey through the Essentials We Believe curriculum, we continue Pillar 2, the Empowered Body, by focusing on Statement 11, Perseverance of the Saints. This statement rests on a direct foundational premise. Everyone who is truly born again is permanently kept by God the Father for Jesus Christ. Driven by His love, God initiates a three-part action toward the believer. He calls us, He redeems us, and He justifies us. Justification is the theological act where God officially declares a sinner righteous in His sight. Because of that declaration, believers stand on an unshakable foundation. It is a solid, immovable base that is slotted firmly into place, providing ground we can always fall back on. From that foundation, the believer begins a life of new obedience. The text makes it clear that venturing into this new life does not remove hardship. Daily obedience is routinely accompanied by human weakness, deep emotional despair, and our own stubborn internal resistance to God's work. God anticipates this exact friction. These earthly struggles serve as the precise environment designed for sanctification. Sanctification is the ongoing, lifelong process by which God helps a believer grow in grace and holiness. Historical disagreement exists around the limits of this grace. If a Christian falls into ongoing, willful, and unrepentant sin, can they actually lose their salvation? It forces two specific, haunting questions. Will our adoption by God be permanent, or is it possible for someone who is truly born again to eventually be lost? Over the centuries, two major theological camps have answered these questions differently, the Calvinist and the Arminian. Calvinism teaches that God's grace cannot be permanently lost, whereas Arminianism asserts that salvation is conditional and can be lost through a failure of faith. This centuries-old debate over whether the salvation of believers is absolutely secure forms the core of the doctrine known as the perseverance of the saints, or eternal security. Eternal security is the theological concept that true salvation cannot be undone by human action. Within this curriculum, we subscribe to the Calvinist doctrine of the perseverance of the saints. We look to the standard set by the Westminster Confession. The Westminster Confession is a 1646 doctrinal document outlining core Reformed Protestant beliefs. It states that those whom God has accepted, effectually called, and sanctified by His Spirit can neither totally nor finally fall away from the state of grace. The doctrine guarantees that these specific individuals shall certainly persevere in that grace to the very end, achieving eternal salvation. In practical terms, those who are truly born again cannot be totally lost. We persevere not through sheer human willpower, but strictly because we are preserved by God. It is God who holds on to the believer. The Bible explicitly emphasizes that believers continually need to trust in Jesus to be saved. However, Scripture teaches that believers do not generate this ongoing trust on their own. The confidence to maintain that trust is rooted directly in God's faithfulness and His omnipotent power. The logic points to a single conclusion. If the foundation of salvation is God Himself, the salvation of the believer is eternally secure. This doctrine moves beyond an intellectual exercise the moment we face our own deep spiritual failures. In those moments of weakness, the natural human reaction is a paralyzing fear of losing God's love. The perseverance of the saints offers the exact opposite, confident rest in His faithful power to keep you. We end with a final heart check. When I face deep spiritual struggles or failures, do I rest confidently in God's faithful power to keep me, rather than living in fear of losing His love?